Afternoon and good morning. The public hearing conducted by the Committee on Land, Environment, Housing, Agriculture, Parks, and Infrastructure is called to order, and the time is now 9:02 a.m. And today's date is Monday, February 10th, 2025. Notice of this hearing was disseminated to all local media outlets on February 3rd, 2025, with the second notice provided on February 8th, 2025. Notice of the hearing was also made known to the Guam legislature. Was made known on the Guam Legislature's website and the Government of Guam public notice portal. This morning, the committee will hear testimony on Bill 3538 COR, an act to add a new Article 2 to Chapter 32, Title 10, Guam Code Annotated, relative to prohibiting the import of skincare products that pose a danger to Guam's coral reefs and marine life. A bill that I introduced along with co-sponsors Senator Sabina Perez, Chris Dueñas, Speaker Frank Blas Jr., Senators William Parkinson, Joe Agustin, Chris Barnett, Sabrina Salas Matanane, Tina Muña Barnes, and Shelly Calvo. The committee was also scheduled to hear Bill number 2638, an act to strengthen housing options by adding a new sub-Article 3 to Article 1 of Chapter 61, Title 21, Guam Code Annotated, relative to authorizing the construction of accessory dwelling units, ADUs, in residential zones, authored by Senator Christopher Dueñas. However, we have removed that bill from the agenda at the request of the author, and will be announcing a hearing on that bill at a later date. I would like to now welcome my colleagues joining us today. As Vice Chair to the committee, Senator Chris Dueñas, Senator Tello Taidegui, Senator Vince Borja, Senator Sabrina Salas Matanane, Senator Chris Barnett, and Senator Shelly Calvo. Before we begin, I would like to go over the general rules of conduct. Individuals testifying shall first be recognized by the chair before speaking and shall state their name for the record-keeping purposes. Personal inference as to the character or motive of any senator or any individual is not permitted. The chairperson of the committee may order the removal of any hearing from the hearing of any member of the legislature in Guam who fails to observe the proper decorum pursuant to the 38th Guam Legislature Standing Rules. Any violation of this general rule of conduct will result in the removal from the hearing by the host. And we will now proceed with hearing testimony on Bill 3538 COR. And I'd just like to ensure that our senators on the panel here will have 5 minutes to ask questions to the participants and then also I remind them that the questions should be relevant to the bill. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us today on the public hearing of Bill 3538. We are here to discuss a critical issue that affects the health and sustainability of our beautiful island. The importation of skincare products containing harmful chemicals that pose a danger to Guam's coral reefs and marine life. Our coral reefs are not just beautiful underwater landscapes. They are vital ecosystems that support a diverse range of marine life and provide significant economic and environmental benefits to our community. However, certain chemicals found in many skincare products, such as oxybenzone and octinoxate, found that many skincare products have caused coral bleaching, DNA damage, and deformities in young marine organisms. The proposed bill aims to prohibit the importation of these harmful products to protect our precious coral reefs and marine life. By taking this step, we can help ensure the long-term health and the vitality of our marine ecosystems, which are essential for our island's biodiversity and livelihoods of many of our residents. I invite all our stakeholders, including folks from the Guam Environmental Protection Agency and the community members and industry representatives to share their insight and perspective on this issue. Your input is valuable as we work together to safeguard our natural resources for future generations. And thank you for your attendance once again for coming out to publicly testify on Bill 3538. I have the list here of who will be providing testimony. First, we have Becky Camacho from ABC Stores, who's opposed to it, and it would just be, okay. And then Aaron Limpiaco from ABC Stores as well, opposed. Camille Batista, ABC Stores, opposed. We call on Michelle Lastimosa, Guam EPA Administrator, to please come forward for your testimony, as well as Ashton Williams from Department of Agriculture and Olivia Banes from Department of Agriculture. If you can please go ahead and take the seats up here. We'll go ahead and start with Michelle Lastimosa, the Administrator of Guam Environmental Protection Agency. Once again, just state your name and your position for the record. Thank you.
Good morning, Chairman, Vice Chairman, Senators. My name is Michelle Lastimosa. I'm the Guam EPA Administrator. I just want to thank you for this opportunity to provide testimony today. The Guam Environmental Protection Agency is supportive of any measure where reasonable action is taken to protect our coral reefs in Guam. Guam EPA wants to kindly and gently remind this legislative body that the authority and enforcement of sunscreen lies with the Department of Public Health and Social Services, Division of Environmental Health Consumer Commodities Program, under Title 10, Division 2, Chapter 40, the Guam Food and Drug Cosmetic Act. The Guam FD&C, as well as the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, or FDA, regulates sunscreen as an over-the-counter drug. So DEH enforces the importation, safety, efficacy, sale of these products. Guam EPA is not delegated to enforce the FD&C, and I would like to ask this legislative body to keep the enforcement authority within DPHS, DEH. Also, if passed, to appropriately place this article into 10 GCA Chapter 40, not Chapter 32, which is the Hazardous Substance Act, as it does not meet the definition of a hazardous substance, which is usually caustic substances, acids, solvents, biological agents, paints, heavy metals, or petroleum products. So it doesn't fall under hazardous substance, but more a drug under 10 GCA 40. Having healthy coral reef ecosystems is extremely valuable. Not only does Guam rely on these ecosystems for the environmental benefit of coastal protection, it supports economic benefit, such as food, recreation, and tourism. Our coral ecosystems face serious threats from a number of sources, including land-based pollution, such as stormwater runoff, coastal development, unsustainable fishing, disease, and invasive species. However, regardless of how corals are stressed, scientific studies show that with oxybenzone actinosate and octocrylene in the water, coral growth and restoration is affected. As swimmers lather up with sunscreen as a way to protect against the sun's scorching rays, it also has an unintended consequence of significant amounts of sunscreen accumulating in the water. Sunscreens are called petrochemical or chemical if their active ingredients are derived from petroleum. Some of the petrochemicals, such as oxybenzone, actizonate, and octocrylene found in sunscreen, threaten the health of coral reefs. In August of 2022, a study by the National Academy of Sciences evaluated the use of sunscreen ingredients and their environmental impacts. The study found that certain chemical UV filters found in chemical sunscreen can harm aquatic life, including coral, by causing deformities in both coral larvae and baby coral, damage to coral DNA, and abnormal skeletal growth. This is especially problematic in reef areas that are popular swimming and snorkeling locations. The sunscreens used by swimmers washes off and pollutes the reef and damages the coral that is essential to the reef coral system. However, in considering both sides of the scientific community, I want to make note that these studies were conducted in a laboratory. The same 2022 National Academy's review of sunscreen in the environment found that between 1 and 10 micrograms per liter of sunscreen chemicals that were found at the test site or a popular tourist spot is a concentration comparable to 2 grains of sugar in a standard bathtub at the upper amount. That same review noted that the toxic levels of sunscreen molecules, both in acute exposure and over time, chronic, are significantly higher than what was observed in that particular environment. So there's an argument that in some cases where studies claiming oxybenzone or actinosate kills corals, the use of sunscreen concentrations were higher than what was observed in the environment. Additionally, while we recognize that increased ocean temperature is the leading cause of coral bleaching, we can attribute stormwater runoff pollution as a cause for nearshore coral bleaching. Some would argue that there is no evidence that sunscreen plays a significant role in these events. This agency supports the use of sunscreen that do not contain chemicals that are harmful to coral and marine life, like mineral-based sunscreens, as alternatives to chemical-based sunscreens. I cannot speak to the economic impact this may cause consumers or to the importers of sunscreen products containing oxybenzone, actinosate, and octocrylene, or if its cost will increase for chemical-free sunscreens. I want to believe that most people who use Guam's recreational waters want to do the right thing and use products that won't damage our reefs or harm our marine life, while still having access to alternative products that provide protection against the sun damage and reduce the risk of cancer. Mineral sunscreen, while it does not contain chemical UV filters, is considered a better option because there are less effects on aquatic organisms. However, nothing is truly reef safe, as scientists are continually expanding our understanding of sunscreen toxicity. Meanwhile, as researchers continue to investigate matters further, we recommend using UV protective clothing like hats, shirts, pants, and sunglasses, and using shelter as an option. Moreover, we recommend that studies specific to the concentration of these chemicals in Guam waters be evaluated. Dankalu Nasidus Maasi for this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam. Thank you, Madam Administrator. Ma'am, would you like to go ahead and state your name for the record? And
I'm Ashton Williams with the Guam Department of Agriculture.
yeah, thank you. You can go ahead and provide your testimony.
Right. Thank you for this opportunity. So I am here today providing testimony on behalf of the Guam Department of Agriculture's Division of Aquatic and Wildlife Resources. I am the program manager of the Guam Coral Reef Initiative, which is a section of DAR devoted to the conservation and restoration of Guam's coral reefs, seagrasses, and mangrove ecosystems. We were very happy to see the introduction of Bill number 3538, and we believe that this bill, if passed, will add another critical piece to the puzzle of coral reef and fisheries conservation. I hope I'm not being too repetitive, but our coral reef ecosystems provide a wide range of ecosystem services to our island. They support thriving fish communities and a robust tourism industry, and they mitigate wave energy to protect our shorelines from erosion and prevent coastal flooding that could damage our infrastructure. Coral reefs worldwide are increasingly being threatened by warming ocean waters, coastal development, and declining water quality, particularly due to pollution. Locally, our reefs face additional threats from sedimentation, vessel grounding, marine invasive species, and recreational use. Our coral reefs are popular with both locals and visitors who enjoy our diverse coral reef communities teeming with fish and other marine life. We have a responsibility to protect our corals both for people and from people. We know that certain chemicals used in skincare products are harmful to our oceans, not just our corals, but fish, sea turtles, and invertebrates. Some of these chemicals have already been banned specifically for the protection of coral reefs in other areas, including Hawaii, the US Virgin Islands, and the Republic of Palau. On Guam, it's not just easy to find ingredients or products with these harmful ingredients, it is actually difficult to find products without these ingredients. Most of our major shopping centers, particularly those that cater to tourism, have few or even no reef-safe skincare options. Most people are not aware that these chemicals are harmful to marine life, so they have little concern for buying and using these products. There's also little opportunity to educate people about the impacts of these chemicals. Consumers can go to just about any store in or near Tumon, pick up a bottle of sunblock, slather on their entire body, and walk directly into Tumon Bay. By banning the import of products containing the most harmful chemical sunblock agents and providing alternatives that we know are less harmful, we can ensure that swimmers, snorkelers, divers, and other beachgoers are using less harmful alternatives. And to be clear, that isn't just mineral sunblocks. There are other chemical sunblocks, such as those that are approved in Hawaii, that we know are less toxic. As the government agency tasked with the management and protection of our natural resources, the Department of Agriculture's Division of Aquatic and Wildlife Resources strongly supports this bill and urges the legislature to pass Bill number 3538. There are many threats to coral reefs that we cannot control, and we should take every opportunity to protect our reefs from preventable local threats. Guam's coral reefs are a crown jewel among the United States natural resources, and we appreciate the legislature's effort to conserve and protect them. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. I appreciate your testimony. Before we continue, I'd just like to recognize Speaker Blas for joining us, and also Senator Parkinson. Thank you, Senator, for joining us as well. We'll go ahead and I'll ask my colleagues if they have any questions for you, and I'm going to go ahead and start off with the Vice Chair, Senator Dueñas.
Mr. Chairman, I guess I would start by asking those who are opposed, did you care to testify, or were you just here to participate in the hearing? Okay, thank you. Just wanted to note that, Mr. Chairman. So, first of all, thank you, the panel, for being here, Ms. Lastimosa. So, in stating that the enforcement would be under public health, so would you join them if the ban were in place, meaning that as far as EPA is concerned, it would be in concert with wanting to protect the environment?
So under Chapter 10 GCA, or Chapter 40, 10 GCA, we don't have authority to enforce the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act. So sunscreen is considered a drug under FDA's definition. And we don't have jurisdiction to enforce that section. It's under the Department of Public Health and Social Services. Things that we do have some jurisdiction is, let's say, a consumer product that has a pesticide like DEET or OFF. That we would have jurisdiction under our Pesticide Enforcement Act, but not the FD&C.
So other than enforcement, would you be in support, though, for environmental reasons of their enforcement?
Absolutely, Senator.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Thank you. I just wanted to clear that up.
Yes.
To the gentlewoman from Agriculture, could you maybe enlighten the panel on other jurisdictions who have enacted this ban worldwide?
Yes, so Hawaii, I think, is probably the location that most people here will be most familiar with. They have banned octocrylene, oxenoate, and oxybenzone, and there are other chemicals that are used in their sunblocks that are known to be less harmful to coral reefs. I cannot recall their names off the top of my head. They have a lot of syllables, but for example, ABC stores in Hawaii, if you go to those, you can find any of those products there.
Okay, so any other locations, or is this quite prolific throughout tourism destinations and destinations which, have a coral reef to protect?
A little bit yes, a little bit no. This is a bit of an American problem because all of our sunblock, our chemical sunblock agents are quite old. We haven't introduced a new one since 1999, or it hasn't been approved by the FDA since 1999. And many other countries have more options that are more, I'm not sure if modern is the right word, but different options and are no longer using these chemicals. So it is a bit of an American problem at this time.
Okay. So I don't know that you've gone this deep, but I think just using anecdotal data and following the tourism models in terms of impacts and recovery, it seems like Hawaii, it hasn't affected them at all in terms of deterring tourists or tourism market.
I am not really qualified to speak on that. I will say that as a person who uses sunblock as responsibly as I can. If I've been in Hawaii, you buy what's available. You don't say, oh, this doesn't have the chemical I like, I'm not going to buy that. And most people are not bringing their own sunblock on vacation, so I can't speak to the economics, but in terms of choice, if you don't give people that choice, then they can't buy it and use it.
Well, we thank you for your testimony, both of you, and I think that knowing that Hawaii, you know, has led the way on this, I think that gives a lot of credence, and knowing that the stores are similar in nature that may be having some difficulty with this, I think they'll probably have no problem selling the other product that bans that doesn't have these chemicals in it. So I'm encouraged to continue to support the bill in that vein. Of course, we always have to, recognize economic impact, and we have a very fragile tourism industry right now, but it seems like I think the guests that come to Guam are coming here for the beauty and to be able to enjoy particularly the ocean, and the preservation of that resource is probably outweighs any thoughts. I think that it will continue also forward to give us an opportunity to sustain guests coming to the island, because we have to do everything, as Ms. Lastimosa pointed out. Of course, we have so many other factors, but it's no reason to not take one of the factors out just because some of the larger ones may be more the predominant. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I thank you for allowing me to have a few questions.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Senator Taidigui?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning to you. Good morning to my colleagues. Of course, those who are testifying today, thank you so much for taking the time out of your schedule to school the legislature when it comes to things that we're not so familiar with, especially process. Michelle, thank you for taking the time. I do understand your concern about moving this to another agency to oversee this. Has there been any products or certain chemicals that have EPA monitors that bans from being brought into Guam?
So specifically, pesticides that aren't registered with US EPA are prohibited. At this point, or lead, fixtures that have lead in them. So we have the Lead Ban Act, plastic bags.
Yeah. And how do you monitor these things? Is it in your agency, is there a specific section in EPA that hires individuals to oversee this enforcement?
Yes, so our pesticide enforcement program, they actually have a notice of arrival. So anybody importing pesticides would have to report the quantities and product that they're importing. So we give them kind of an approval before they import those products. But we also do marketplace inspections to see whether or not things slip through. Oh, sorry, there's like.
No, isn't that right? Yeah.
But we also do marketplace inspections to ensure that other things aren't being brought in illegally, either through small importations or they slip through customs inspection. And then also with our engineers, let's say that there's construction, we verify that all the fixtures being installed are lead-free. So we look at packaging, we look at receipts from those construction companies to ensure that only lead-free products are being installed.
And Michelle?
Oh, sorry,
yeah.
go ahead.
And
then plastic bag ban is our newest law. And then again, marketplace inspections for those products.
That being said, how do you, in the event somebody does violate the law that you have in place, how are they notified and who prosecutes them, and what's the process when somebody has a violation? Where does the funds go to?
So we usually issue a notice of violation, order of compliance. So we give them the opportunity to either pay the penalty or go before our board and dispute the NOV. So through our board, they decide what next steps to take, if it can be resolved by the board. And then if not, it gets referred to the AG's office.
So then it ultimately goes there for any violation, correct?
If it's not corrected through our board of directors hearings.
But the board doesn't have the ability to prosecute an individual for, breaking law.
No.
Okay, so it does go to the AG. And so in your agency, there's quite a bit of staff there. You're well-equipped when it comes to that. So there's a cost that's associated with any kind of enforcement that's done. So in the event this bill does pass, and we find that it should be under EPA, will your agency be able to enforce this legislation and monitor?
I think that if we're given the authority under this new article, then we would. But it's almost like it's not in our swim lane. Because it is defined as a drug, Guam EPA doesn't deal with the importation, sale, efficacy, safety of drugs.
Sure, so you don't know of any other jurisdictions like Hawaii, where does it fall under? Or maybe, I'm sorry, I didn't get your name again.
Ashton Williams with Department of Agriculture, but I'm sorry, I don't know the answer to that.
So you don't know where Hawaii, it falls under, whether it's under their EPA law or whether it's under their public health law?
If I had to guess, probably public health, but I don't know for sure. I can look that up if you would like.
And you're under Department of Agriculture?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So your testimony is, apologize, it's early, no excuse. So your testimony, which I don't have a copy of, do you have a?
I don't, but I will be providing written testimony later this week.
And then you're representing the Department of Agriculture?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so we'll get that, I guess, later on, right, Mr. Chair? We'll get the testimony. Okay, my concern here too is, of course, if anybody's been about a person protecting the environment, I think I've created legislation, as you know, Michelle, protecting our environment, which I think is quite important. But we also have to look at the demographics of what's going on currently right now. I did read a testimony that was sent to me personally from a company that imports these products, and their greatest concern. One of them is, if the legislature, so be it, want to pass this legislation to ban this type of product containing these certain chemicals, they have every right. However, what do we do with the inventory they currently have? And some of these companies have close to, over $500,000 worth of inventory already in stock, and 180 days may not be enough time for them to deplete their inventory. So they're asking that, one individual was asking to grandfather whatever products that are already currently here. I mean, once it comes into place that the ban is hit, no importation of these products, and that whatever they have in stock will be grandfathered in to allow them to sell till it's completed. Kind of the same situation, right, Michelle? With the plastic bags. Our intent was to make sure that these bags don't go into the landfill. It was one of the biggest concerns. Well, what happens when these companies who provide these plastic bags have hundreds of boxes of plastic bags, and then when there is a ban, where is it going to go? Into the landfill. They're going to throw it away. So it's kind of, catch situation here. So anyways, I know I'm looking at some of the other testimony come in from these business agent companies, their concern, and I agree. I agree there should be some type of grandfather clause. I mean, other than that, or the government of Guam would subsidize them for the loss of their inventory on something like this. But to give them enough time is important for them to deplete their inventory. Other than that, Mr. Chair, I look forward to hearing from Public Health to find out the costs it will incorporate into their agency on enforcing this type of legislation. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Tideway. Senator Borja?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the opportunity, and thank you for you guys coming to testify today. I just have one question, maybe one of you can answer. Just based on your expertise, do you think a complete ban is necessary, or do you think stricter regulations or even public education would be equally effective?
I'm going to play devil's advocate here, but those products that contain those chemicals are still considered and deemed safe by the Food and Drug Administration. So there's the argument that, you're banning something that's still generally considered safe to use for human, skin protection. But at the same time, as an environmental agency, I'm all for protecting our reefs. That's, vital to our protection from coastal erosion. So there's really it's a hard decision to make. Certainly you want to be most protective of our environment, but at the same time, you're looking at people's choices to choose a product that is generally considered safe for their own use. Some people may not want to use the mineral-based products because they do leave a very white, ashy coverage on your skin. So, women who use it may not want to be covered in white paste while they're out in the sun. So, it's a matter of choice, I think, at this point. But again, there's two sides to this ban.
That's all the questions I have, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
May I also add, when there are, as I've said before, other chemical sunblock options that would replace these ones, it will not be a total ban on chemical sunblocks. It will just be these 3 specific ingredients. When you go to the store and you buy sunblock, are you carefully checking which ingredients, going, oh, this one's my favorite? People are not generally checking to see which exact ones. They pick up sunblock, they say, this is the best price, this is the brand I like, and then that's how they're selecting it. So I don't think that education would be a great option here either, especially since we have a lot of different languages on Guam, both in our locals and in our visitors. People are not stopping to read that. So we're not taking away the possibility of chemical sunblocks for people. This would just be removing the most harmful ones for our environment while introducing alternatives.
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Bora. Senator Matanane?
Well, thank you, Vice Speaker, for introducing this legislation. I'm certainly proud to be a co-sponsor because I think any effort or initiatives to protect our coral reef structures is something that I would stand behind. Ashley, since you are here, if you could just kind of talk a little bit more about the damages that oxybenzone and octinoxate as well as octocrylene have on our coral reefs so our viewers at home can hear that.
Of course. So while there haven't been any studies done on Guam's corals specifically, and as Ms. Lastimosa mentioned, they are all laboratory studies. They've been shown to damage the DNA of corals. They've been shown to cause malformations in not just coral larvae, but fish larvae, as well as other invertebrates. And then there's also evidence that they are damaging to sea turtles as well. While in a laboratory setting, these things are done alone, in the real world, there's a lot of other factors that are happening. We have other pollutants that aren't just sunblock. We have warming ocean waters, sedimentation. There's a lot of things that go into the soup. And while perhaps we haven't seen the concentrations of sunblock that they use in the labs, putting all those things together might mean that those impacts are going to be stronger. So just because we see a study with what we think is a very high concentration of a sunblock and we say, oh, well, we don't have that concentration in our waters, that doesn't mean that the impacts aren't happening because there are so many other stressors on our coral reefs. So any local stressor that we can help to mitigate is, I think, something good that we can do.
Thank you, Ashley, and thank you, Michelle, for your testimony. I look forward to reading the testimony from ABC as well as other members of the community. I have no further questions.
Thank you, Senator Matanane. I would also like to welcome Senator Gumatauta for joining us. Next, Senator Barnett, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the opportunity, and thank you, Michelle and ma'am, for your testimony. I also wanted to add another jurisdiction that has banned the oxy, whatchamacallits, for lack of a better pronunciation. Key West, Florida has also recently banned these chemicals. And I kind of got to thinking when I went to Palau, and this was way back in 2009, if you've ever been to Palau and you go into the Jellyfish Lake, they don't allow you to use sunblock, and you actually have to rinse it off. So, I support the bill. Obviously, I'm a co-sponsor on it, and I think we do need to figure out how to accommodate some of these individuals who have, according to one testimony, about $500,000 worth of inventory. So I don't know if we do a fire sale on that, or if we weigh the damage that these chemicals have on the environment versus the right of these people to make a business out of it. But, the tourism numbers are down, so I think any fine tuning we're going to do relative to this kind of issue, environmental, now's the time to do it. And I think it sends a great message to our tourists that we do care about our environment. Not just with sunscreen, I think there are many larger other environmental issues that we definitely need to address as a body. But I support the bill, and I thank you again for your testimony this morning. And for those of you who are watching, they're just doing the coin toss now. And I heard there was a football game or something, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Barnett. I appreciate that. Who won the coin toss? Senator Calvo, please. You have any? Yeah.
Good morning, buenas, half a day, everyone, and thank you so much, Vice Speaker. Also, thank you for inviting me to co-sponsor this bill. I truly support this bill because, first, we only have one island that we have to care for. So it's imperative for us to be conscientious about all our efforts that will affect or destroy or change, things around here in our island. Now, I'm curious to know, because these active ingredients have a drastic effect to our environment, especially in our marine lives, right? And it's shown in other places as well, as Senator Chris Dueñas mentioned, in Hawaii. And I'm curious, here on Guam, what are the actions and efforts that we have been doing since we already know that this causes damage in our coral reef, right? What are the actions and efforts that we have been doing the last couple years to combat this before this bill?
Yeah, so the Guam Coral Reef Initiative, which is a program of DOAG-DAR, has been doing sunblock outreach for several years. We have materials on our website. We have printed cards, which I believe we might actually have if the legislature would like to see. We also do a lot of outreach events where we bring examples of sunblocks, and we play a game where we ask people to determine which one is the reef-safe one and which ones are not reef-safe. So we have examples that people can see of real brands that we use or don't use, and we do, probably 40 outreach events a year. So we have a lot of that. It's also available on our website. I'm not sure of any larger efforts island-wide to educate, though.
So as we promote all these awareness efforts, do we actually give recommendations on what products they may use, as a substitute to avoid all these active ingredients that are harmful?
Yes, so we don't recommend specific brands necessarily, but we show ingredients that people should look for to either have or avoid, and we also recommend just covering up, wearing more skin protection.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Ashley, and thank you, Ms. Michelle. That's all for now. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Senator Calvo. Speaker Blas, do you have any questions? None, sir? Thank you, sir. Senator Parkinson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am one of the co-sponsors of this bill, and I am very deeply in support of it, and I'd like to thank the primary author for making this the first bill of the new legislature. I hope it's a sign of things to come, that we are going in a more pro-environmental route with the legislature, and I highly commend that direction. People ask me in the community, what's the big deal with a little bit of sunscreen? And so I tell them a story of when I was a young firefighter boosting New Mexico right before they had record lightning storms come through. While we were waiting for the lightning storms to come through, we were boosting a district, and they had sent us out to go do some busy work. You know, it's a little area where tourists and locals like to shoot a few bullets and have a good time. I'm like, okay, go clean up in that area. What's the big deal? They shoot a few bullets, and they go do time. And then we got there, and what we found was a sea of bullets on the ocean floor, or on the forest floor. Because when there's just a few people doing a little thing, but you live in an area with potentially millions of people, those little things add up to a lot. And it's similar here with sunscreen. Now, it's true, this is a product that is safe for human use, but it's not necessarily safe for our environment. And it's just a little bit of sunscreen on each individual person. However, think about that. Guam in its prime was hosting more than 1 million tourists a year. 1 million tourists all taking a swim. Guam's beaches is one of its selling points. This is more relevant to us than 99% of the jurisdictions out there, because the beach is one of our lifebloods. Not only is it there for food, the protection of our coral reefs, and our tourism. We have a lot invested in our beaches, so we should give it some gravity. I disagree with this notion that we should grandfather in previous stock, because if we do that, we might as well just be dumping that stock directly into the ocean. Because when we sell it to people, of course they're going to use their sunscreen. And maybe just even the threat of this not being grandfathered in will encourage businesses to start weaning off of those products now. Because I believe with the support of this legislature, we will pass this bill as one of the first bills of this legislature. And I commend that action greatly. I do believe that it would be a mistake to grandfather it in. And so, to that end, maybe there is some way we can help these businesses, maybe there isn't. But what's important is we got to put Guam first. The needs of Guam outweigh the needs or difficulties of any individual. And so I appreciate us taking a stand to make sure that these products don't destroy our reef. It's our reef. It's the only reef we got. And if we kill it through neglect, that's just as bad as if we did it intentionally. So, thank you, Mr. Chair, for introducing this legislation and hearing it today so expeditiously. And I stand in full support of it, and I oppose any idea of grandfathering current products because I see it as just dumping it directly into the ocean. So, and with that, I yield the rest of my time. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Parkinson. Senator Gumatauta, you have any questions for the panel?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to have a really quick question, and thank you again for the panel for being here. I know that we've talked a little bit more about the implementation a bit earlier, but I just want to talk about the education side of the house. What ideas do you think are available at this point to help enforce the proposed ban through education and awareness programs for residents and tourists, tour groups, skincare product distributors, and retailers?
It's a bit of a difficult question to answer as far as education, because we cannot force companies or stores to put informational signage in their stores, and that is where people are getting their sunblock, right? You don't just, go get it from, a tree. You have to go buy it somewhere. The other issue is that people don't read signs for the most part. So you can put an informational sign up next to something, but you can't force people to read it. For the most part, people are going to just go, grab one specific thing and walk out, especially if they've used it before. It's very difficult to educate people on this topic. And also people tend to, with a lot of personal care products, they have something they like and they don't stray from it. They buy the same thing every time, and even telling them, hey, this is bad for the environment is in many cases not likely to make a change in their behavior. Overall, education has varied and difficult to track effects on behavior. So I think personally removing the option is the more effective way to make this happen.
So I know that, having worked with public health in the past, that if this law does pass, or this bill passes, then they would just put out, educational flyers at the point of sale, just like during dengue or COVID, where they put up posters that advise people, how to take care of places that breed mosquitoes, or how to properly wear your mask, or how to properly wash your hands. I think that if this bill passed, then public health would just have to put out educational flyers to inform people that those products were no longer available and that there were alternative products for sale.
Thank you for your answers. And when we think about the amount of education that can be given to our community, and we have other jurisdictions that can help us, they always say that imitation is the most sincerest form of flattery. So why not using what the best practices from other places could help? And I know that there's an agency missing from this, but I still support the intention of this measure. And thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the time. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Gumatao. Yeah, I'd like to thank both the EPA and Department of Agriculture, Division of Aquatic Wildlife Resource, right? Thank you guys for coming out and testifying on this with your oral testimony. We did get and receive written testimony from Sun Care Distributors, Mr. Todd and George Patterson, against the legislation. And we look forward to also receiving any other legislation. I think the bottom line is when COVID was one thing, right? But I think it really gave our ecosystem a chance, our marine life a chance to regenerate, regroup, and get back some life into it, right? No one's in the water. There was no sunblock, no sunscreen for the time that it took before we allowed it again, and not again that we're rebuilding tourism. Perhaps this is the opportune time to move forward and get this legislation onto the session agenda. So I'd like to thank you both for your testimony, and would like to, if there's no other comments, we're going to conclude today's public hearing. The committee will continue to accept written testimony on today's hearing within 7 days from today, and which may be mailed to my office on the second floor of the Guam Congress Building at 163 Chalang Santo Papa in Hagåtña. And you may also send your statements to us at Vice Speaker Tonyata at guamlegislature.gov. That's VICESPEAKERTONYADA at guamlegislature.gov. I'd like to thank you all for your time and your participation in this public hearing. And the time is now 9:50, and I call this public hearing adjourned. Thank you all. Thank you to my colleagues.